In this video, I'm going to show you how to factor out a greatest common factor and a difference of two squares. So, in class, we've been using this flowchart. This is the flowchart that tells you the thought process you go through when you're factoring. The very first thing you always do is look for a greatest common factor. If you have a greatest common factor, you factor it out. After that, you either do or you don't, and then you see if you have 2 terms, 3 terms, or 4 terms. Today, we're going to be doing 2 terms. If there are 2 terms, you see if there is a difference of 2 squares. If there are a difference of 2 squares, then you'll have 2 parentheses, one will have a plus, one will have the minus. The first term will be the square root of the first term. The second term in each parentheses will be the square root of the second term. So, let's look at my first example I have for you. Very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a greatest common factor. I'm going to see if there is any number and or variable that would divide all of these terms. So the first thing I do is I think about 7. 7 will only divide by 1 and 7. 1 is not going to help us. Will 4 divide by 7? No. So as soon as I see 4 doesn't divide by 7, there's not a numerical greatest common factor. But this has 3 x's, this term has 2, and this has 1. So my greatest common factor is x. What I'm going to do now is I'm mentally going to divide each one of these by x to see what is left over. So 4x to the third, if I divide that by x, you had 3 on top, you had 1 on the bottom, that becomes 4x squared. 20x squared divided by x, you subtract those exponents, and so that simply becomes 20x. Negative 7x divided by x, they cancel out and you get negative 7. You would then continue trying to factor a trinomial, but for the purpose of what we're doing right now, we're done. So let me move on to the second one. I start at the top of my flowchart. Is there a greatest common factor between x squared and 49? The answer to that is no. So I say, how many terms do I have? I have 2 terms. Is this a difference? Yes, because it's subtraction. Are these both perfect squares? Well, what number times it, or what letter times itself would give you x squared? That would be x and x. What number times itself would be 49? That would be 7 times 7. So both of these are perfect squares. Because of that, you will have 2 parentheses. One will get a plus and one will have a minus because the opposites make the linear term disappear. The square root of x squared is x times x. The square root of 49 is 7 times 7. That is as factored as that can be. And finally, you have 20x squared minus 45. So I'm going to start at the top of my flowchart. Do I have a greatest common factor? Well, let me think about 20. 20, I could do 1 times 20, I could do 2 times 10, I could do 4 times 5. So I'm going to start trying to figure out what is the biggest number that will divide 45. So I take my calculator, I do 45 divided by 20. That's a decimal, so it's not a factor. 45 divided by 10 is a decimal, so it's not a factor. 45 divided by 5, that is the first time I've had a whole number, so that's my greatest common factor. So I'm going to take a 5 out. This has x squared, that doesn't have an x, so I cannot take that out. So, in my head, I'm going to divide both of these by the greatest common factor. 20 divided by 5 gives me 4x squared. Negative 45 divided by 5 gives me a negative 9. So at this point, I simply took out my greatest common factor. Now I have to look at what's left in my parentheses. I have 2 terms. So I need to ask myself, is this a difference of 2 squares? Difference means subtract. 4 is a perfect square and so is 9. So this will continue to factor. A difference of 2 squares has 1 plus, 1 minus. 2x times 2x gives me 4x squared. And the square root of 9 is 3. But don't forget to bring down your greatest common factor. That is your refresher on how to factor greatest common factor out and a difference of 2 squares.